Hello, my name is Hope from the platform of eCnews.org. eCnews is a non-for-profit organization that provides virtual companion for seniors from ACC and above. Virtual companion is basically designed to provide emotional support to seniors who feel lonely and isolated from their communities, and this is done remotely through the usage of video chat technology. So today, I want to especially welcome you all to today's book reading section. We have been reading a book from Alex Ageye. We have done several chapters, so listen as I read. She had stopped breathing before he came in. That was how it seemed to him at first. In exasperation, he screamed, "Oh, Maza!" He screamed the name a second, and then a third time, and fell on the head surface of the bed, not making him comfortable. He shouted yet again out of fear. "Oh God!" he called out aloud, pushing his little hope into his doubtful core. It was not even sure of what he was doing, but went about his whatever it was carefully. She lay motionlessly. She lay motionless, face upward, and red light streaming in through the opening in the wall danced on her face, which, though hard, showed peace. He ran his head over her to feel her pulse, wondering in that instant whether the sickness had come to its worst and the doctor prediction had come true at last. She has a few days on her life, the doctor had said. He began to blame himself for hoping her condition would change for the better, even though he had seen her drifting away. He pressed gingerly onto her ribs. Her tiny hands rested almost weightlessly by her side. The bed made several quakes at the joint as he walked on her. The quakes interfered with his contraction and annoyed him. He inched to hold her, even get hold of her life. A little more time yet, he urged himself, still confused by the unusualness of her condition. Just a little more time yet. Her flesh had been flicking away by the day, and within the 6 months that the sickness had run, he urged she had become a third of her weight. Her clothes hung by the bed, sweeping the floor as if it had been thrown away. In a last-minute effort, he struggled and reached out for relief, and her skeleton profile was sketched on the bed by the light. He stared into her eyes, listening, this time his hand running on flesh above her clay core. In a slow start, while gazing on her face anxiously, he pulled the clothes over her again. He was beginning to die of exhaustion and tension, his weak body scarcely able to sustain him. He heard some noise at the door, but did not open the door or respond. He wanted to be sure of her death before he announced it. Soon he was pressing her chest again, a bite harder this time. Miraculously, miraculously, he shouted with relief. She was already looking like a grandma at 22. Looking at her, it was difficult to tell whether she was just lying silent or dying. Her health worried him because he reasoned that he and Maza were quite intimate as friends. In fact, so serious were they with each other that they had become quite inseparable. A hospital treatment was out of the question, he thought. They had been to several physicians, and all of them had only one verdict: just a few days. They had wished that all the best. They have wished her all the best, that meant, whatever that meant, though. That wish has given him hope until that morning. He realized that his mother was dying slowly each second. Life had begun well for them 2 years before until suddenly she was taken ill. He tried to recall moments in real life together to reassure and give himself some hope. Not long before, a friend had advised him to consult a faith healer. Silently, he recalled the details. "Didn't you say that the doctor have said just a few days?" his friend had asked him. "Yet," he had replied, "I, as your friend," his friend had continued philosophically, "can only advise one thing. And what that may be, if you will allow me to ask," he had said, becoming curious. "Do you know God is beyond science? At Goma Dago?" "Well, yes, so you know. Who hasn't heard of Obafo Nkasha?" In that case, his friend had gone on suggestively, I needed I needn't tell you what you should do. You must already know where I'm leading you." But he had gone on anyway, and told him the things he needed to make the visit to the spiritual man, and then the ideal day was to pay the visit of healing. He had never visited the place, however, he listened to the instructions. He had heard the name mentioned by a colleague. He tied himself to the idea and licked his left thumb childishly as he crossed to open the door. The day was getting old suddenly, but he was far, far away from the pitch he needed. To him, every knock or sound had some weird reality. Opening the door, he pondered over his options. There were three members of the household who, though they stood silently outside the door, looked quietly distraught. "Is she all right? Is she?" they all said almost in chorus. Neil Takil smiled and tried to allay their fears. "She's well, only a little. She might have been caught in a dream." "Oh," the neighbor closet to Neil Takil said, sounding skeptical. "If that's the cause, well, take away all sources of worry from her. You see, much goodwill and a good death should surely save money years for her yet." "Sure," the others said in unison. The door was half open, and Neil had carefully ensured that nobody saw the inside of the room. "The scream we heard frightening us, Neil, but your explanation gives us some comfort," another neighbor said, turning to the other as if seeking confirmation, and the others in turn nodded their approval. Walking back to her, he noticed that she was lying still but alive. and was murmuring something. He knelt down close to her to get the message. He asked her if she was all right, and she replied in the affirmative. She was used to calling him the young banker. Neil thought he could read the words of her unmoving lips. He went ahead and wiped her forehead as if he found something there. You are getting better, Maza, he said, leaning towards her. She tried to smile, but her face was contorted with pain, and he grinned, and she grinned. The doctor, she said, and paused for a while. What did he say? She continued, raising her voice a little above a whisper. What? He responded, feigning disinterest. Before you took me from the hospital the last time, what did he say? I want to know now. Nothing unusual, he assured her. He wished us well and he tried to appear unworried, but she was not convinced. I know, he said for more money. He asked for more money. Don't hide it, Neil. We have no savings left, have we? Tell me, Neil, she pleaded. No, no, he, he protested. The doctor was all praises for you. Your fighting spirit, he said, was fantastic. He controlled his emotions carefully, shifting his ground. He went on. A friend has rather suggested that we consult a herbalist. Of course, of course, I told him that we'll think about it. That's all. He smiled and continued. He's a good friend and someone who takes genuine interest in my affairs. One of these days, you'll meet him, exuding confidence and self satisfaction. He went on. He assured me that herbs would deal with your condition. He recommended a very good herbalist, a spiritualist whom I know. I believe that he is the best faith healer in the country today. He threw his elbow backward to support his back and said, I know you agree with him. You do, don't you? Do you have the money? She asked. Yes, he said. You shouldn't worry at all. In fact, in a few days, we shall go to the healer. Her eyes blinked and closed inexplicably, but he held her to enable her to vomit into the chamber pot at the foot of the bed. Hearing a noise coming from under the bed, he bowed down to find out what it was, and in the process, frightened away a mouse, right? Which ran a mouse, which ran off through a hole in the wall. He carried the chamber pot covered with a white sheet of paper towards the big open drain behind the building. He stood for a while looking around and being bathed by the breeze from the Atlantic Ocean. He bent forward, knelt down, and poured the content of the chamber pot into the drain. As he did so, many thoughts chased one another about in his mind. It was all ill luck that Maza could not point out any living relation. He reminisced, but they belonged to each other. After all, he boasted of no blood relation either. He owed the bank where he worked some money that had been outstanding for so long that the bank manager had written him a query about his indebtedness. Well, It's an IOU, he thought without any emotion. He felt an inexplainable surge of relief, but his relief was not to last long. Soon, a gunshot from the railway station started, startled him and hurried him into his room, and he banged the door behind him. The security agent must be at it again, he thought. Round up thugs, or perhaps it was a gang of armed robbers who had broken up and were fighting among themselves over some spoil. What he worried about were stray bullets, which he feared might hit him in the course of his incessant nocturnal trips to the deep and open drain to dispose of Mazda excrement. There were dead silence, so thick you could touch it. He walked back. When he returned to the door, he sat by the table beside his bed. For a while, no one spoke. He put his head on the table and was soon very fast asleep. His spirit was very willing to watch over Maza, but his body. Now we're moving on to a different story. Same book. This one is actually discussing about a woman named Orojo. Let's read. Mama Orojo took a very long time to decide to jump because of her weight. There was only one person on the road beside them, and she watched him for a long time before she joined her friend. Ebook on the road. The man's uniform indicated to her that he was an immigration officer. He had he had had no difficulty crossing the bridge. He turned to look at him, curious as he did so, but said nothing. Why were you looking at the immigration officer? Ebook asked. Anytime I see an immigration officer, I'm reminded of my past. She pulled her clothes upward to enable her to jump. The white isolated building on the hill were in sight. Mama Orojo had earlier complained about the lack of progress in their evangelical work in the town. Many people they worked to show little interest, and it became clear to them that the served brotherhood did not want to see them preaching among people they felt were either part of them or were potentially so. However, very soon in the afternoon, the missionary work would end, and the weakness and the new convert would end it all with a group prayer. An elderly man was expecting them, and they were anxious to see him too. Though on an earlier visit they had paid to him, he had disagreed with them over certain issues. He had told them that the Old Testament was the basis of any religion, and they had agreed with him. Mama Orojo had impressed upon him that immediately Jesus was born, the prophecy of Isaiah was fulfilled. She had stressed the New Testament was crucial in the worship of God. That to the elderly man was a worthy comment. It brought them together and gave them the chance for another meeting that afternoon. Ebook had a good voice and she had learnt the Bible inside out. That did not, however, make her overbearing in the Bible discussion. Mama Orojo was reminded Ebook about the day of their initiation into the Amen Christian. That day, they both kissed the cross. Kissing the cross was an important ritual of the Amen Christi, and every initiate, as they call the convert, accepted Jesus Christ first and kissed the cross next. The third duty of an initiate was to evangelize. Ebook, as her initiation, had beaten the cross of the horror of all present. Nothing of the sort had ever happened before. An ebook was nearly rejected. She had suddenly laughed heartily when the pastor raised the cross to her lips, but failed to close the mouth to avoid closing her teeth on the hawk crucifix. Her front teeth hit the foot of the cross. The pastor frowned and it immediately worked on the congregation, but he quickly forgave the miscreant. As a sign of forgiveness, he urged her to be more conscious and not to laugh as irresponsible as she had just done. Ebook seemed to have taken the comment well, yet as soon as the pastor finished the rite, Ebook was laughing again, and her laughter moved the congregation to laugh too. "Why did you do that?" asked Mama bitterly. "It wasn't all my fault," Ebook injected. "Why did you do that?" asked Mama belatedly. "It wasn't my fault," Ebook interjected. "You just blame me. I felt I had to laugh and I did just that." Her response threw both of them into another spell of laughter. On the very day of initiation, Ebook and Mama Orojo had had the prescribed white uniform worn by the congregants sewn for them at Slap's boutique. The uniform identified them easily in Ileja. The missionary work in the town was their sixth since they joined the church. Ebook had a secret she shared with her friend. Her husband had refused to join the Amen Christi and vowed never to join any church which was younger than he. But according to her, they kept their relation by a fragile agreement. Each had accepted not to invite the other to change his or her religion, or worse, join the other's church. She broke the agreement a year later and by telling him that he should join the Amen Christi. He had crushed with all demons, but the marriage had survived. Mama Orojo feared that the road would be unusable because it had shown signs of being submerged the previous day. In the morning, the water had swelled up and spilled onto parts of the road, spanning the bridge. The drivers applying the route had piled stones on the bridge to stop the rise and flow of the water, but it was futile. The river was in its own architect and carried itself through with ease. The drivers, on their part, were unperturbed. unperturbed. They always came back and added more stones. This is where we're going to be ending today's book reading session. Thank you so much for your active listening. Till we meet again in the next section. Thank you and bye.